Did you know dysmenorrhea, or painful menstruation or painful periods, can be more painful than a heart attack, or that over 900 million women suffer from it? Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about this with my co-founder, Gray Goodwin from Davao, Philippines, Lee Sterling, my science director, and Professor Lindsay Brown from the University of Southern Queensland from Toowoomba. Dysmenorrhea is foreign to males, but for women, severe period pain is part of life. The subject of periods is still taboo in most cultures throughout the world, but for 2.1 billion women, it's a never-ending from the age of 10 or 12 through to the age of menopause, which is about 50. Over 95% experience dysmenorrhea sometime in their life, but for severe dysmenorrhea and or menorrhagia, which is the blood loss of more than 80 mils per cycle and menstrual pain exceeding 7 days, that's about 30%. Between the severe and the moderate, that's maybe as high as 60% of all reproductive age women. And it's not just pre-childbirth. Women who have period pain before childbirth often wind up with it post-childbirth through to menopause. The current medical advice is basically mindfulness to hysterectomy. And the medical research funding is less than about 64 cents per person for something like endometriosis. In contrast, male erectile dysfunction gets about 19 times, that's 19 times more funding. But it's not just pain. The UK estimates at least 8 days per year of incapacitation on average, and that equates in Australia to over $9.2 billion. We started growing seaweed in the Philippines about 4 years ago for a reduction of methane in ruminants, but we switched to growing seaweed and producing it for animal health and for plant health. But I met Professor Jane Tees at the International Seaweed Symposium in South Korea 18 months ago. And while she'd worked all her life on breast cancer, which was women had actually 1/6 of the breast cancer rates in Japan than in Western developed countries, what struck me actually was a trial she did with 40 obese Equatorians back in 2009. And what you see there is that the blood pressure was significantly reduced, in fact, as much as a drug, and also that waist measurement on some of the females decreased. So what we did was we went looking. And we met with Professor Lindsay Brown, and Lindsay has published over 174 papers over the past 15 years on what he terms functional food. That's food that actually has a drug-like effect. Now this is just one, which is sarcopenia published 2020, and his normal trial, which is the one with the lines on it. So they feed rats either normal food or junk food for a period of 8 weeks, and then they continue them, but they intervene with a functional food, which is very much like many people that you know who may have become obese, and then they try and change their diet. Now, what is pretty consistent on all of those things is that blood pressure reduces, the liver inflammatory cells decrease, there's a reduction in change in cholesterol, and there's also, in the most recent studies, a great big change in the microbiome. So we looked at this and we said, well, let's look at it. The work that Jane Tees had done, and she'd just taken her seaweed and put it in capsules. So we took our fully organic, fully certified, fully traceable product, and we stuck it in capsules. I actually did it because I don't like the taste of seaweed, and I wanted to eat that. What at that stage was 5 grams of seaweed was about the minimum amount of seaweed we needed to eat if we were to transpose the animal studies to human studies. And lo and behold, all of the anecdotal evidence that came back was exactly the same. Hypertension reduced by about 15 millimeters, type 2 diabetes, the blood glucose returned to normal. We had customers say to us that their osteoarthritis had gone. So we thought, well, let's see what we can do. So in the new year, Katie came to us. She's a 26-year-old law student, and she said, sir, my period pain has gone from, well, she said 11 out of 10 to a 0. And when I was recounting the story to my 41-year-old daughter, Amanda, she looked at me and she said, my pain's gone from an 8 to a 3. I mean, what daughter tells her father these things? So we said, okay, at the same time, COVID struck. And so we couldn't get product out globally. We had enough for 150. We thought, how many do we need to do, not just from a power in terms of the trial, but in terms of convincing people that this was real. So we had enough for 150. That's what we ran with. As it turns out, the power required was actually 14. Well, to our surprise, trial results are unbelievable. If we look at 75% who had pain of 5 or more at the start of the trial had changed to 75% had pain less than 5. Now, 4 to 5 is a pain threshold where you start to self-medicate with analgesics. And it wasn't just pain. What also happened was that the burden of menstruation changed. The duration of bleeding halved. The severity of bleeding, or what's called menorrhagia, halved. Not only was these two things in terms of their menstruation, but even premenstrual symptoms. At the start, 5% they had no symptoms, as reported no symptoms. By the end of the 2 months, or 3 months, 3 months in this case, 26% actually had no symptoms. So mood swings, headaches, food cravings, depression, acne or skin breakout, painful breasts, all gone. So our industry challenge is, right now, this is food. It's dry food, nothing but that, and we can sell food, and we have sold thousands of units globally right now. Our target is the call centers and employees that have a large number of young women. For them, it's a financial benefit for them to do it. We have to convince three groups of people. We have to convince customers, we have to convince regulators, and we have to convince the academics. And to be fair, academics are the most conservative. So within 3 to 4 years, what we expect to be able to do is actually sell this as a direct product for dysmenorrhea. We expect to be able to sell it as an over-the-counter product, and or it may actually be included in food products, where you could pick up one of these chocolate bars from the counter at every checkout. Our challenge in this business is to convert what is commonly thought of as snake oil or just good food into food for health. So the animal studies have been done on animals. So but between Professor Brown, Professor Tees, Sunar, and a range of others from India, from Philippines, from Malaysia, we've done this work in animals. What needs to be done is this work needs to be done in humans so that we can take the data to the regulators with a regulation pack and with clinical trials. What we also need is we need academics to actually get on board and help us in this process to realize that this is actually food and it's not snake oil. The impact of changing from just food to food for health is that it's only about 1,000 hectares if less than 1% of all women who are affected by dysmenorrhea, of those 900 million women, take up seaweed. But what it does do, that small number increases the current value of the seaweed industry by more than 15%. Moreover, it reduces the landfill and ocean pollution because feminine hygiene products are part of those issues. It's not just a monetary value, it's philanthropic and sustainable and organic. Whether you're a woman in a sweatshop in Egypt, or in a boardroom in Geneva, or in Manhattan, it's time. It's time to get rid of that pain. It's time it's good for the communities of ocean farmers of growing seaweed, and it's good for humanity. On behalf of all of us, thank you very much for this.